we noticed when we came to the school was that we wanted the students to be interested in the class. We wanted them to come to school. Because, for example, they could have even if they didn't want to come to school, they can still give their exam without attending a single class. Even if they fail the exam, they can still move on to the next grade, because that's just how the system works. So they had to, if they didn't want to, they had to invest absolutely nothing in it. And so we wanted to change, that was the first thing that we wanted to change in students. I think getting that investment from students, that's what most of us struggle with even every day to this day. And getting that early on is really important. It was very critical for me because before this, it was just in my first month, and I had very little interaction with the students, and I had just come to the school and I was still an outsider, and this way not only did they get to talk to me about something non-academic, but they got to discuss it, they got to share their opinion without any sort of judgment or prejudice, and it gave me an insight about what I could expect and what kind of standards I could set for them, and what kind of objectives and goals I could choose, and what routes I could take to get there. Because I realized, for example, that with these students especially, if they feel strongly about it, they will do something about it. And if they don't care, they won't do it. So whatever I chose to do next was then based on my motivation to get the students emotionally involved, or to get them motivated, or in some form have an attachment with whatever we're doing. One of the most surprising aspects of my discussions with the students was that they were extremely aware and they felt really strongly about lots of the things that were around them. For example, when we first stepped into school, we took the uncleanliness as a norm. We took it as something that was part of the school, and that was going to be there if you're going to work here. However, in these discussions, we realized that students feel equally sort of negative about it, as they hate coming to a school which is dirty. They hate coming to a school which has litter on the ground. They hate sitting on a desk which has dust on it. And so they did not realize or did not think that there was much they could do about it, so they just accepted it. But when they asked to talk about it, they were very passionately against it. And not just this, for example, they had lots of issues, they discussed lots of things which I thought was much beyond their years. For example, they brought in stuff like prostitution and gambling and alcohol and cheating and all these issues that basically they had emotions about and they wanted to do something about.
Sonali, Ravina,
the whole Design for Change idea was about taking responsibility. And so since then, every time we have something, even if it's a behavioral issue in class, when I ask the students whose responsibility was that, they always say it was my responsibility. And so my problems have been cut down by half. Because now I don't need to explain to them how it's their responsibility, they've internalized that concept. That whatever it is that's around them, it's their responsibility. And so just the way this competition worked, the children internalized that idea, that their environment, for example, is their responsibility. One of my students in the grade 7 class was elected after an acting trial to play the role of a mosquito. Now, she took the role on, but just before performing, and before that she was just like another student. I didn't know about any of her extraordinary qualities, not yet. And just before performing, she was bullied by some students from grade 9 and 10 about how she's playing a mosquito. And she comes to me and she said, I want to quit because I can't do it. And so I sat down and I spoke to her, and then I spoke to the students who were bullying her. And after we resolved that issue, she decided to go ahead with it. And since that day, that's been a completely different student in my class. She's always energetic, she's always participating, she's so confident, she's never scared anymore. She now volunteers to do any sort of challenging job which other students are afraid to take on. That just came because she saw that she took a risk and it paid off. I think it was as simple as that. But the fact that it paid off so well for her, and it did so much for her personality to come out. Telling us
the train timing.
Very good. Would you mind telling us the train timings? Question mark. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? Design for Change was something, for example, which they started as an external activity, non-academic. Yet all the things that all the tools that we use to conduct that activity are the tools that we use in our class every day. And so when they made that relationship, when they realize that everything that we're doing, the pattern in which we do things, is exactly what we use in the real world, for example. And so when they make that connection, that there is a huge relationship in what they study and what they can do, they realize that education has an inherent advantage. I think that goes a really long way. They used examples from real life more so than from books, and that made me really happy because they are starting to connect the dots a lot more. And I think that's the eventual purpose of all sorts of education, just for the students to make that link without a teacher having to make it for them.